choose love. I choose love. This is a great part of Nashville. I really like it. It's you know, tons of trees and
Oh, it's just beautiful.
yeah.
I mean, it must be really wonderful, and well, any season really. It's nice now.
Yeah.
But,
A lot of leaves.
yeah. So I mean, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
And to be here
Yeah.
in Nashville. And last time, which is what, 3.5 years ago, we did an interview. I interviewed you on Skype for the Love Begins With Me film, and I can tell you how much better it is to be here in person.
Oh,
Because
definitely.
we won't have to deal with all the Skype business, and we'll have a good video this time. And it's great. I mean, it's a great pleasure for me to be here, because being from England, I never get to be here otherwise. And what I really wanted to offer you is the opportunity to take your interview forward, because we did a great interview last time. It's a lot of really interesting material, but a lot's happened for you since then. And I wanted to offer you the interview so that you could give us a kind of an up-to-date picture of where you are now, especially with your I Choose Love movement. And I see from your website that you've been expanding and you're doing more, and still keeping it in the context of the Love Begins With Me film. I'd ask you to give us an update and continue your story of how you brought love into your life, and now you're taking it out into the world with especially with your singing, songwriting.
Right, sure. Well, you know, the story continues. What shall I say? You know, to be truthful, since our last interview, and you know, the 2012 shift and all that sort of stuff, I thought things would get really sort of, you know, rosy, you know, a little bit. Yeah. But these last couple of years have been the most intense personal healing years for me, in the sense of like revisiting old woundings and clearing relationships that no longer are, you know, that what I would call that higher heart love, you know. And so now that that part of, and of course astrologically we went through some intense, you know, configurations to as a race to clear. And I think this whole idea of the ascension principle is really quite strong right now, which is, I would call that deeper love, that Christ consciousness love, that unconditional love. It's like, how are we all moving into that? So
it wasn't clear, was it, when 21st of December 2012 came by, and, well, what happened? You know, what's happened since? And it hasn't been very obviously clear to a lot of people, but like you say,
well, it's not the fuzzy kind of love that I think everybody was thinking, the world peace and all this and all that, you know. And it's like, what I know about the whole experience of love, when people choose love as I choose love, and it stirs the pot, because it's a higher frequency, and when we begin to embody a higher frequency, all that stuff that's lying dormant or subconscious in us that's not been dealt with yet rises to the surface. So what I believe that happened with 2012 is that we all got an infusion of this incredible loving energy, and a lot of us weren't quite ready to go to the depths again of that. I mean, that was incredible, you know. And some of the wounding that I had to go through, that was like, okay. And you know, I had to let go of an 8-year relationship that meant a lot to me. That was it just wasn't going to support this new consciousness, you know, not yet anyway. So
things were coming up to the surface. It wasn't that everything was happening at such a subconscious level that things were going on.
No, this was coming to the surface. Yeah. This was coming to the surface. And if we're if we're individual microcosms of the whole, look at what's been going on in the world since then. You know what I mean? Just the intensity of of clearing, you know, and continues to clear.
It gets more intense day by day.
Very, very much intense. And so, and I think what people have to understand that, in my experience anyway, was learning how to get even more grounded, really anchoring really strongly into the earth, you know, and opening up to that energy and allowing it to come through and really planting it here. And it's such where it's like it's not something to play with anymore. Either you do it or you go nuts, you know.
So you're doing this at a much more kind of conscious level now, and you're sort of really aware of exactly what's going on in your life. Whereas I would say I think most people are probably unaware of the process that's going on, but so many people can say what's going on in the world because it's getting really, I mean, really intense in so many different ways, and it's difficult to make head or tail of it when you're not sure of the bigger processes.
That's exactly right, you know. And I was told years ago there would come a time when, you know, people would be literally lost, completely lost, and some people would choose to you know, leave the planet. I've had friends that have committed suicide in the last year, and they can't take the changes that are happening. And the guy I lived with for 4 years took himself out in this last year. I've had to deal with that, and it's like, wow, this is a whole opportunity to choose love at a whole nother level here, you know. So what I was told was years ago there would be a very fine line between love and fear. And as those of us who are consciously aware of that would begin to really quite, you know, understand that and be able to be the way showers for those yet to come. Now with this, in my own, you know, like you had asked, well, what's been happening with my own career since then? You know, I didn't know what I was going to do next. You know, and of course I'm always writing, and my artwork has been evolving as well. But I had the opportunity to film a TV show a couple of years ago. And it was an internet show called Inside Matters. And we're going to be releasing those in this coming year. And basically I'm interviewing artisans, you know, filmmakers, singer-songwriters, visual artists, playwrights, stuff like that are actually bringing some sort of awareness in through the arts.
Tell me what the context is then of those shows. When you say bringing awareness in, I mean, is that part of that bigger context of how things are growing, or
Absolutely.
How consciousness is growing?
Yeah, like we had one couple come on, and they created a film around sex slavery, which is the fastest growing crime behavior in the United States, or actually worldwide right now. It's unbelievable what this unconsciousness is doing to young people. So they've created this, you know, this drama, this film, and they filmed it over in Nashville, North Carolina, and so they're going around the world and the country, you know, promoting this film, and it was great. What we're doing is we're shining the light on the areas that need to be cleansed out. So it's like, as a, you know, humanity, is this really where we want to go? You sure you want to go there? Again, it's a choice. So that was one of the things, you know. And then just artisans that are writing about, I love this one guy we did, his name's Tom Kimmel, a good friend of mine for years, fellow Nashville singer-songwriter. And he wrote a song called No One Gets to Heaven Until No One's Left Behind. And it was a song about how he was talking with a fundamentalist preacher. And he was saying just because they weren't of a particular religion, they're going to hell. And he just could not fathom that. You know what I mean? And so he wrote this incredible song, you know, and very heartful song. So it's, again, the black and the white, it's the extremes are really showing up right now, in my opinion, as things have ramped up. And I believe that we're getting ready for a really strong shift, like the one that we were promised, I believe is really coming. But it's just looking a little bit different than what we had all perhaps thought it was going to look like, you know?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I personally expected something to happen around that time, December 2012, which would shock people into a new realization of some sort, with people saying, you know, what is going on now? why am I asking these questions? You know, tell me more. And it didn't happen in the way that I was expecting.
Right.
But it with all of the different things going on in the world today, which we could enumerate, but I won't at the moment. People ought to be saying, why is the world changing so rapidly? You know, why is everything becoming so much more intense and actually generating fear as much as anything else? Yet, perhaps that's the thing that offers the possibility of people looking for something which is more grounded in something that's real and answers the kind of questions that we've all wanted to have answered about, well, where is the love in the world? Where is the community and the fellowship and everything that brings us together? And where is it? And how do we find it?
And that's a great excuse me, that's a great awareness, because it's like, you know, like you're saying, the fear is escalating, and so that we can shine a light on it and actually have a conscious choice as to which way do you want to go. I think we're soul tired. Me personally, I call it soul tired. It's like I feel tired of the constant bombardment of violence on the airwaves, of, you know, just the atrocities in the world. I mean, just the plants and animals that are going extinct every day. I mean, we're not taking care of this earth too well, and I think a lot of us are beginning to feel really soul tired. It's like we need an infusion. We need something that's going to help us keep our faith a little stronger. And I believe we're rapidly coming to that, which is the whole next level of love.
Yeah. So where are you taking your I Choose Love movement?
Well, this is interesting, because I've just this guy that I was filming these TV shows with, you know, it's just weird. I mean, he had a big heart attack 3 years ago, and so the shows have all been put in the can, and we haven't released them, but we're getting ready to release them. And it's going to be called Inside Matters. It'll I'm not sure what the URL is going to be for that yet, but the other thing he's created is a new platform called iTube 247, iTube 247. And so we threw the I Choose Love song up on this. It's a video platform like YouTube. And they did a little promotion work. In a week, we had 7 million hits on I Choose Love.
Really?
This is outside of the quote-unquote sort of self-help, enlightened, you know, the people-seeking circles. And we stepped back from that going, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the rest of the world is starting to finally get get it. You know, it's like, it's really a choice now. And I want to be aware of it, you know. I just don't want to let our politicians run ragged. I want to know what's happening. I want that power, that responsibility in my own life, you know. And I think a song like that can really support that. And so it's actually had a second life, which because part of my challenge, my personal challenge, was like I did everything that I possibly knew how to do to create, you know, a movement, awareness. It was part of my mission as coming to this planet. It was like, how do I, again, heal through the arts? And I felt like I ran into a wall, and I had to let it all go and just completely, okay. And then this shows up. So it was pretty wild, you know. So we're in the process of.
But your I Choose Love song has gone far and wide in some incredible ways, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And some of the people who've heard your song and acclaimed it.
Absolutely. Desmond Tutu was one who heard the song and embraced it and sent me a wonderful email. This was probably the highest honor. It was used in the Memphis Civil Rights Museum when they inducted the Dalai Lama into the Hall of Fame, or the Freedom Award that they give for those people in the world who are promoting, you know, race equality. And so that was a very high honor, you know. So, and I still feel like that this song hasn't found its due, you know. But that was a big shot, you know. And So we're in the process of now releasing the next big song, which I think is going to be really cool,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a song called "I Am the Love I've Been Looking For,"
Oh,
and it's a little different twist, but it's like, you know, it ultimately comes back down to, for me anyway, it's like, you know, we all look outside of ourselves for material things, relationships, and all this and all that.
Mm.
But ultimately, what we really want, what I really wanted, was that connection to that love that lives within me.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to choose it, but then it's another thing to actually walk it. And that's primarily where I think my own personal growth is right now. It's like, you know, how do I embody that love and let it shine and let it grow bigger and walk that and be an example of that, as opposed to proselytizing it, you know.
So where is that song now?
We're in the process of filming a video with it.
Mm-hmm.
We have it recorded, and it'll probably be released within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Good.
So yeah, and it's fun, and it's a different genre from me too. It's more of a smooth jazz sort of. It's really cool. It's a little different for me, which I love, because it's like, you know, the whole "I Choose Love" record that I did. There's many different modalities of genres of, you know, world rhythm and that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a little different flavor.
Oh, great.
So yeah, that's great fun. So, and then also, I think since I spoke to you last, I created the "I Choose Love" book, which is an art book.
I've seen that. It's very
Yeah,
good.
thank you. And you know, and that's a painting that I've done to each one of the songs,
Mm-hmm.
and it just tells my healing journey through art and music, and then short stories around where I was in my own personal transformation when that song was prevalent, you know, where it came from. And of course, the bigger vision for that is to someday put that into a major motion picture, and then eventually into a Broadway musical.
Yeah, right.
So that's what we're working on with that too.
What about your "Wake Up America" song?
Well, that's interesting too, because we posted that on the iTunes 247 as well, and they didn't do a lot of promotion on it, but with the hits that we got on the "I Choose Love" song, that's now finally had its due course, and it's up around 700,000 hits right now.
Really?
So that's getting legs, and I thought that was a wonderful song too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So my time has, you know, is yet to come. I guess it looks
Well,
like,
it's
you know,
coming though, isn't it?
it is that, you know, with this platform, it looks like I could
Yeah.
get the exposure, you know, and you know, again, it's what I came here to do, and it's fun.
Did you manage to get yourself out and about? You know, events, gigs?
Yeah, I continue to tour. I did this past fall. I did a couple of gigs in Salt Lake City and Sedona, Arizona, and I'll be playing in Montgomery, Alabama this month. I have a big gig in Cincinnati. For those or anyone who's listening, it's called the Conscious Con, or the Conscious Conference, and it's the first time they're actually booking keynote speakers with keynote concerts. They're finally marrying the message of the music with the message of the written word or the spoken word. And of course, I just think that this is going to be tremendously successful, and I'm the keynote for that.
Really?
Yeah. So that's May 16th and 17th. So that'll be a big event. Panache Desai, Matt Kahn, some of the speakers, and of course I'll be up there singing "I Choose Love," you know.
Yeah.
So
It was great for me to see your song appear at the end of that big conference in Wembley in London. David Icke, 6 hour, was it 6 hour?
I don't know, but you're the one who called me and told me it was happening. So that was
it was so brilliant to see your song appearing at the end of that, because David Icke is a man, he's very, very well known, isn't he? And he's got a big following, and he wants to talk about love, but he spends most of his time talking about the way that things are and ought not to be, and we'll bring it back to a point where he says this is what the world needs. And at that point, after his 6 hours, this is right at the very, very end of his 6 hour explanation of why the world is not the way it ought to be, he said, "Now I want you to listen to this song. It's my favourite singer, my favourite song, Shawn Gallaway singing I Choose Love." It was such a blast to see your song and you featuring at the end of something which had worldwide coverage, and I imagine still does, because I know he still sells his CDs afterwards. I mean, that was a real breakthrough, I felt, for him and his ability to communicate what he was trying to tell people, that I choose love, we've got to choose love. It was such a blast to see that.
Yeah, and I watched it. I wasn't aware of it happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I did get to see it, and it was a high honor.
Mm.
It was a very high honor. Now it's interesting that you say that he spent that one little section on the love part, and then gave all the information before. And I think that's part of the shift that's coming. In the sense, it's like we all know about all the other stuff, but what we don't know is how to be love in the world. And it's like maybe now with the introduction of that kind of process or whatever, that we can begin to focus more on the solutions. And those of us who have been down this path are coming forward now to say, okay, this is how we do it.
Well, the key to it, I think, has always been, how do you communicate this? How do you put it over in a way that everybody can relate to directly for themselves, in a way that is not something that they can't grasp somehow, something that they can relate to easily and just bring into their lives and recognize is the answer they've been looking for.
Yeah, and it's in what I call, you could call relate to, I call it having an experience of. When you actually have an experience of love in your, I'll speak for myself, when I have an experience of love in my life, that's how I ground it. You know what I mean? And it's like those experiences have been, covered up, twisted, through religion or cultural whatever. But when those pure experiences happen, it's like it bypasses the mind, the thought process, and it's an experience of being. And that is what is the next big wave. When we begin to take people into those places, because in those places, it's like the computer gets cleaned, and we can begin to step forward in a new way of being, or an old way of being that we're remembering, and we can begin to be of service to that love in the world and offer people experiences of that in themselves. And I think that's what's really critically important. Maybe it's not such a big rah-rah, big, all of a sudden one big thing, but it's like each one of us having those experiences, and slowly it more moves out into the rest of the world.
Well, as you're out and about doing your gigs and so on, are you hearing from people about their experiences and how their lives are changing in the direction of love in a way that you hadn't before? Have you seen the kind of process going on, developing? Is it more obvious now?
It's much more obvious now, in the sense that, again, what's coming up for people, especially a lot of us who have been on the cutting edge of it, is the intensity of what we're processing and releasing seems to be tenfold. And it's like, but the good news is that we're learning how to anchor in all that sort of stuff in a deeper way, which I feel in my own life is supporting a deeper consciousness with more strength. There's more strength to it now. It's before I was talking about it, and now I'm living it, if that makes any sense. And that's exciting. That's really exciting. So yeah, it's the transformational process has definitely escalated. I hear that consistently across the board when I'm going out there and working with people. And like they say, it's darkest before the dawn, so the dawn's just about here.
The Love Foundation's finding that there's a tremendous acceleration in the number of people who are coming to love. And the Love Foundation is great with the social media, and particularly on Facebook. Now there are something like 140,000 likes, which grew from just a few tens of thousands over the last 12 months. So something has been happening just over the last 12 months or so.
Exactly.
After the end of 2012, and then we had 2013, when was this anything happening at all? But 2014 seemed to bring it all into play, and people seem to be looking for it.
I agree. I think that, you know, in the experience of healing, and, you know, again, I tell people, when you choose love, understand that anything unlike love is going to come up in your consciousness so that you can transform it, transmute it, heal it, and actually it becomes fuel for the fire, the flame of love within us. And what's happening right now is that, we've all been down in the dark, digging in some of those really, really intense places. And what I tell people on the journey is that, you know, you will go through an experience or a dark night of the soul. You know, some of them are small, some of them are much bigger. But understand, know them. It's like Rumi says, welcome all guests. They're all there to help you, you know what I mean? Some of the shadow, some of the light. And I feel like what we're getting ready for right now is we've been in that dark, dark place, and we've transmuted a lot of that, and we're using that as that next layer of fuel to burn even brighter, so that the consciousness can rise up even higher. So I think we're right at the cusp of a really wonderful, you know, and from a global standpoint, I think that I would like to see that, you know, the shadow governments are going to start, being enlightened. You know, we're actually going to have government for the people. You know, we're going to finally start seeing inventions to take us beyond the use of fossil fuels. Stuff we're going to be able to start hearing, funding things that are supportive of the earth, you know. I think that shift is right now beginning to happen.
There's a huge amount that needs to happen.
That's what I mean, and people they're feeling that call to that right now, and that waking up is happening.
It would be good if we could get to the solutions rather than stopping to deal with the problems, I think, if it's possible. Like the shadow governments, for example. I mean, do we really want them to come out of the shadows and reveal themselves and their agendas for what they are, which then might lead to a lot of dissent and a lot of negativity and so on? Could we really go straight to the solution and start finding the love and the...
I think you do both, because I think it's important to honor the grief process. You know, I think that there are a lot of people in grief all over the world, you know, that have been traumatized for millennia. You know, and what we don't teach people is how to be in that shadow. You know, and shadow isn't bad. I mean, we all have the light and the dark. Without them, we're nothing. You have to have both. It's the ability to be able to stand in that darkness and say, you know, I'm going to shine the light here because this is a part of my behavior that needs to shift and change. And that's collectively and individually. So I think it's important to expose the light on some of that, you know, and give people an opportunity to grieve and empower themselves so that it never happens again. You know, in this country anyway, the United States, we've got a very elite number of people that are buying government. That should never happen again. And you know, not a good thing. And the other thing is we're coming into unity consciousness. That's the next step of love, where it's like your behavior is going to affect me in some way. Are we aware of that? And how are we leaving this earth for 7 generations down the road? You know?
Well, the Unity song is one that's a fairly new one for you, isn't it?
What's called Unify.
Unify, I beg your pardon.
Which is another area of my life. I met a guy named Adil at a conference, and he's the one who's one of the founders of Unify.org. It's a fantastic organization. And what they're doing is unifying all the peace organizations of the world under one common place. And so that voice can be held up in a way that's very collectively one voice for change and for love, you know. And so that's extremely exciting, and they're gaining a lot of momentum, and Deepak Chopra is behind that organization as well. So they're gaining a lot of I guess they get 4 or 5 million people on their email list right now, and as they unite these organizations, they're going to be having more and more conferences and functions, and I'll be a part of that as well.
You'll be a part of that.
That's what that's what the Unify song was for, was to give them they have a theme song that they can actually, respond with. There's nothing like a bunch of people singing a song to move some energy.
Well, that's the great thing about music, isn't it?
It is. It's the heart of the. It's the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's the experience that I was talking about. When you actually get 50,000 people in a like you were saying with the David Icke experience. It's like when that I Choose Love song comes on at the end, and everybody's singing and swaying back and forth and moving. It's like there's a heartfulness in that goes beyond the thought process, and from that place, it's like there's all kinds of magic that happens. I mean, the ripples of that go very far and wide, and so I think we're going to start seeing more of these festivals where those kind of songs, those big, anthem type songs, are going to be used to really empower the people and to focus, really clearly focus. All right, let's all come together and focus on the healing of the waters of the planet.
So maybe music is actually the one way in which people could turn to love most readily, in a way that gives them the experience and that they understand. And
it's important to remember the power of music, and that's why I think, again, as musicians, and what I'm supporting is to be very conscious in what we're putting out there. Do you want to be a solution for consciousness in the world, or do you want to continue to to create the fear and the violence with your lyrical content, and your musical content, and it's hard to it's a very thin line between that, but it's like the artisans have always been the ones out on the edge and saying, hey, over here, let's look at this, and so I just support that more messages. You think of the self-help book industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry right now. Why is that not being translated into music? And some of it is, but not on the level where there's a whole genre of music. If you're going to this, you're going to get inspired. You're going to have a healing. You're going to have an experience of love in your life. And that's what I'd like to see happen, where you give people, a choice. If you want to feel good, listen to this. If you want to get pissed off, listen to this,
Could there be a new wave in music, which is a love wave?
Well, look back at the 60s. When the Beatles, all you need is love, and the incredible artistry of a lot of the music back then was just magical, and how it brought people together. Yes, I believe that that's going to happen in even a bigger way, without the drugs and the alcohol. You're going to come there and do it consciously.
Yes.
That would be my hope anyway, and I actually see that happening.
And you were there.
And I remembered I was there.
That means you weren't there.
Well, that's what they say.
Yes. No, I was there as well, and it was a great time. And there was something about it that enabled the Beatles and the Flower Power and everything else to come together in a way that sowed a seed. And it
was an innocent time. There was a lot of innocence. I remember years ago taking my daughter to see A Hard Day's Night. They put it on the big screen in one of the movie theaters, and I was looking at that and just realizing how innocent it was. And where we are now is that innocence is growing up. And I love that. I forget who they said this. Bruce Lipton and Steve Berriman. They said that it's now time for the children of God to be the adults of God in the world. And I said, well, that's the age of innocence, growing up and saying, okay, now it's our responsibility as embodying this love to give it to our grandkids and their grandkids. And how are we going to leave this place? And I think at the heart of all of us, we all want to be loved. And we all want to leave that love for those yet to come. That's the way I see it anyway.
Now's the time.
Yeah. It is right now. It's like, make your choice. Choice point. That's where we are. That's where I see it anyway. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you. Welcome to Nashville.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.